The combat simulation grid shut down for the third time in an hour, and Instructor Kael'thas was watching the same impossible footage again. Human cadet Amelia Williams, average height, average build, entrance exam scores solidly mediocre across every physical metric, had just deflected a level 7 training drone with 2 fingers. Not blocked, not evaded, deflected. The drone's AI had flagged the movement as impossible evasion protocol violation, and emergency stopped the entire grid rather than accept the data. Kael'thas's secondary arms twitched in agitation. Level 7 drones tested species with 3 times human strength ratings. The deflection angle suggested she'd calculated the drone's momentum, trajectory, and structural weak point in the half-second before contact. His species needed computer assistance for that kind of calculation. She'd done it while yawning. "Cadet Williams, report to Observation 7, he said through the intercom, watching her jog toward the instructor station. She moved like every other human, casual, loose-limbed, completely unremarkable, except the grid's motion-tracking AI kept highlighting her footwork in red. Optimized angle efficiency, military-grade positioning instinct, threat response automation, from a substitute teacher." "Yes, sir?" Amelia smiled as she entered, still catching her breath. "Is the grid okay? It keeps stopping." "The grid," Kael'thas said carefully, "stopped because your performance exceeded safety parameters. Walk me through your combat training background." She blinked. "My combat training?" "Your martial instruction, military conditioning, warrior preparation protocols." According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. "Oh," Amelia laughed, "I don't have any of that. I broke up middle school fights for 3 years. Does that count?" Kael'thas felt his throat sac constrict. "You have never received formal combat instruction?" "Nope." "Well, I took a self-defense seminar once, but I left early because it seemed kind of obvious. Like, don't let people grab you, go for vulnerable areas, use your surroundings, common sense stuff," his tablet chimed. "Commander Xylax, emergency priority." "Instructor, we have a situation." The commander's voice carried an edge Kael'thas had never heard before. All 7 human cadets just registered statistical impossibilities in today's combat scenarios, cross-reference with their capability assessments. Kael'thas pulled up the files. Every human scored average or below average on strength, speed, and reflex measurements. Yet the combat footage showed Emma Johnson, former librarian, disarming 4 Karathi warriors simultaneously using what she called leverage and timing. Mia Jones, retail store manager, defeating a Vexian combat champion by reading his body language. Charlotte Brown, dental hygienist, completing the obstacle course designed for species with prehensile tails by just thinking about the angles. "Sir," Kael'thas said slowly, "I asked Cadet Williams about her combat training. She says she's never had any." Silence on the line. Then, "I'm convening an emergency instructor meeting. Bring the human files. All of them." Kael'thas looked at Amelia, who was studying the drone footage with casual interest. "Huh, I didn't realize I moved that fast. The camera makes it look cooler than it felt." "Cadet, you deflected a level 7 combat drone with 2 fingers." "Yeah, it was coming in at a weird angle. I just redirected it." She demonstrated with her hands, fingers moving through precise strike point calculations she clearly didn't realize she was performing. Like, it had all that momentum going forward, so you just guide it past you instead of trying to stop it. Physics. That maneuver requires computational assistance for most species. Amelia laughed again. "Really? But it's just obvious?" That word. Obvious. Kael'thas was beginning to hate that word. "Cadet, one final question. Why didn't you mention these capabilities during orientation? All cadets are supposed to declare combat experience." Amelia shrugged. I mean, I don't really think about it. It's not exactly something you boast about. Fighting's just, fighting. Everyone can do it if they need to. Kael'thas pulled up the Academy's emergency protocols, his hands shaking slightly, because that, right there, might be the most terrifying thing he'd heard all day. Everyone can do it. What in the burning void had they admitted into the Academy? Phase 2. Impossibility. Escalation. 600 words. The emergency meeting room filled with the Academy's senior combat staff, and the tension was thick enough to taste. Kael'thas projected the footage on the main display. "This is from today's standard evaluation scenarios," he began. "Watch Emma Johnson." The librarian appeared on screen, facing 4 Karathi warriors, a species bred for combat with natural armor plating and reflexes that made them Federation security favorites. Emma stood in the center, hands in her pockets. The Karathi attacked simultaneously from 4 directions. Emma wasn't there. She'd moved through the gaps between them with casual efficiency, using their own momentum to tangle them together. 3 seconds later, all 4 were disarmed and on the ground. Emma was checking her fingernails. "Computer analysis?" Commander Zilax asked. "Movement patterns consistent with master-level spatial awareness," Kael'thas reported. "Threat assessment and response time, 43 milliseconds. That's faster than our combat AI's processing speed." Senior combat analyst Vex Thul leaned forward, his optical stalks quivering. "What does her file say about military background?" Public librarian, 12 years, Earth City designated Chicago. Primary combat experience, breaking up arguments over printer access. Someone made a choking sound. "Show me the others," Zilax commanded. Kael'thas played through each human's footage. Mia Jones treating a Vexian champion's attack patterns like a puzzle she was, mildly interested in solving. Charlotte Brown moving through the aerial obstacle course with movement so efficient the tracking system kept losing her. Sofia Garcia, former waitress, disabling training weapons by noticing where they looked breakable. Every human performed impossibly. Every human treated it as boring. "I pulled Earth's military records," Vex Thul said, his voice tight. "No mandatory combat training, no warrior culture, no childhood conditioning protocols. Their primary physical education consists of—" He consulted his tablet. "Gym class and recess." "Elaborate," Zilax demanded. "Gym class appears to be supervised recreational movement. Recess is unsupervised children pursuing activities of choice." "And these produce combat-capable adults?" "According to the humans, no. According to our combat analysis algorithms, yes." Kael'thas pulled up another file. "I've been running recalibration protocols on the training drones. Each time I adjust for human baseline performance, they exceed the new parameters. I've run 17 calibrations. The drones are now set for species with military augmentation. The humans still treat them as easy." "Have you asked them to demonstrate full capability?" Instructor Janira asked. "Yes." Cadet Williams seemed confused by the question. She asked what I meant by full capability. When I explained maximum combat effectiveness, she said, "But then I might hurt someone." The room went quiet. "She's worried about hurting the training equipment," Kael'thas continued. "Equipment designed to withstand assault from augmented soldiers. She thinks it's fragile." Zilax's communication implant chirped. He listened, then his scales shifted to distress pattern blue. That was Galactic military intelligence. They're aware of our situation with the human cadets. "They're sending help," Janira asked hopefully. "They're sending a senior investigator with classified files." Zilax's voice was hollow. "And they flagged this conversation at security level 9. Whatever is going on with humans and combat capability, GMI already knows about it." Vex Thul projected new data. "I've been analyzing Earth entertainment media. Their children's games teach tactical movement. Their sports build combat reflexes. Their playground activities condition threat response. Commander, they're training for combat and calling it fun." That can't be standard for their whole species, someone protested. Kael'thas pulled up Earth's population data. 7 billion humans. Universal education includes physical activity, if even a fraction of them have this baseline capability. He didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room understood. They'd invited apex predators to military academy and wondered why the predators were good at fighting. The investigator arrives in 6 hours, Zilax said. Until then, no one discusses this outside this room, and someone figure out what we tell the other cadets, because if they
find out humans have been holding back this much. On screen, Amelia Williams was laughing with Emma Johnson, completely unaware that every instructor in the academy was terrified of what they represented. Phase 3, System Breakdown, 600 words. Senior investigator Azila arrived with a security detail and a data chip that made Commander Zilax's hands tremble when he inserted it into the secure terminal. The files that appeared were 70% redacted. The 30% that remained was nightmare fuel. Human conflict history, Azila began without preamble, her voice flat. What isn't classified will suffice for your purposes. They have been engaged in continuous warfare for approximately 6,000 documented years, dozens of independent combat systems developed simultaneously across their planet, conflict as cultural constant across all continental populations. Kael'thas felt his throat sac close completely. 6,000 years? Minimum estimate. Their archaeological records suggest significantly longer. The files detail 314 distinct martial arts systems. That's just what they bothered to name and formalize. Azila projected an image. This is what humans call historical reenactment. They simulate ancient battles for entertainment. The screen showed thousands of humans in primitive armor, fighting with metal weapons, while other humans watched and cheered. They play at warfare, Vexthul whispered. It gets worse. Azila switched files. I interviewed Cadet Williams this morning per GMI protocol. I asked her to explain her combat capability. Her exact words, "Look, we just pay attention. If someone's trying to hit you, don't be there. If you need to stop someone, use leverage. It's not complicated." She thinks it's not complicated, Janira repeated numbly. She genuinely believes that. They all do. Azila's scales rippled with distress. I've spent 3 weeks studying human psychology for this investigation. Here's what GMI has determined. Humans don't have combat mode and normal mode. They exist in constant tactical awareness so natural they don't recognize it as combat capability. Azila pulled up neurological scans. Human brain architecture includes perpetual threat assessment as background process, automatic pattern recognition for hostile intent, instantaneous risk calculation, effortless strategic adaptation. What they call common sense is what we would classify as elite tactical conditioning. But their test scores, someone started, are measuring the wrong things, Azila interrupted. We test strength, speed, reflexes. Humans excel at efficiency, adaptation, and creative violence. They don't overpower, they outthink. In the time it takes our species to calculate an optimal strike, they've already moved, adapted, and countered. Kael'thas pulled up his analysis. I reviewed their entertainment media as well. Their children's games, Tag teaches evasion, and Pursuit, Hide and Seek builds tactical positioning. Dodgeball trains projectile tracking and avoidance. They call these fun. Their sports are worse, Vexthul added. Combat conditioning disguised as recreation. Boxing. Wrestling. Martial arts. Millions participate voluntarily. Azila nodded grimly. GMI's assessment, most species develop combat capability through dedicated training for specific warrior classes. Humans developed it through surviving each other. For millennia, their civilian state is what we would classify as combat-ready personnel with specialized training. Why is this classified? Zilax demanded. Why not warn integration programs? Because of morale.
Azila pulled up a galactic map. Humans are valuable allies, excellent engineers, creative thinkers, natural diplomats. But if other species knew that every human, every librarian, every teacher, every server possesses combat capability that rivals our elite military forces. She paused. It would destabilize interspecies relations. Humans don't realize they're dangerous. We need to keep it that way. So what do we do? Kael'thas asked. You classify their combat scores at instructor level only. You adjust evaluation metrics. You never, ever tell the human cadets that they're exceptional at combat. And you implement Protocol Whisper. Which is? The protocol for managing species that could accidentally start wars by being helpful. Azila's scales shifted to grim amusement. Humans are the third species to require it. The first two were non-sapient and we quarantined their planets. Humans, unfortunately, are already integrated into galactic society. On the security feed, Amelia Williams was showing a group of Karathi cadets a fun game from Earth called Keep Away. The Karathi looked terrified. Welcome, Azila said dryly, to your new reality. Phase 4, Revelation and Resolution, 600 words. The senior staff meeting continued into the night cycle, and Azila's full briefing was somehow worse than the redacted version. Complete assessment, she began, projecting comprehensive data. Humans evolved as pursuit predators in an environment dense with ambush predators. Result, hardwired threat detection and environmental awareness. They developed persistence hunting, which requires tactical patience and strategic planning over extended timelines. Every human child inherently learns to think like both predator and prey. But they're not naturally strong, Vexthul protested weakly. No, they're naturally efficient. Azila highlighted biometric data. Human musculature is optimized for endurance and fine motor control. They don't overpower. They outlast. They don't attack directly. They create advantages. Watch. She played footage of Mia Jones in a combat scenario, slowed down. See how she moves the weapon rack slightly left before engaging? That's automatic environmental manipulation. She created a choke point without conscious thought. We wouldn't notice that advantage until combat analysis. She did it in 2 seconds while making small talk. Their violence is casual, Kael'thas said slowly. It's integrated, Azila corrected. Humans treat violence as a problem-solving tool, not an identity. A warrior species defines themselves by combat prowess. Humans define themselves by professions, hobbies, relationships, and happen to be capable of efficient violence when necessary. That's why they don't boast. It would be like boasting about being able to walk. She pulled up another file. I asked the human cadets why they don't talk about their combat abilities. Want to know the most common answer? Everyone nodded, because it's not interesting. They find their own survival capabilities boring. Commander Zilax made a sound like escaping steam. So the answer to our original question, why humans don't boast about combat, is that they genuinely don't think there's anything to boast about. Precisely. They evolved in an environment so hostile that combat readiness became default state. They experienced selection pressure from megafauna, environmental hazards, and each other for hundreds of thousands of years. Then they spent recorded history fighting each other with progressively sophisticated methods. Their current, peaceful state is less than a century old. Evolutionarily speaking, they're still wired for constant conflict. Azila's expression shifted to something almost sympathetic. Here's the part GMI doesn't want widely known. Humans are aware they're violent. Their literature, philosophy, and culture obsess over it. They spend enormous energy trying to not be what they are. They build elaborate social structures specifically to manage their own capacity for violence. So they're suppressing their nature? Janira asked. They're choosing to, which makes them more dangerous, not less. A warrior species fights because that's what they do. Humans fight when they decide it's necessary, and their definition of necessary is terrifyingly flexible. Kael'thas understood. So we implement the protocol. Yes, as of now, human combat capability is classified at instructor level. Here's how it works. Azila distributed data tablets. 1. Combat scores are adjusted to species-appropriate scaling. Humans are evaluated on improvement, not baseline. 2. All instructors receive private briefings on human capability reality. 3. Other species cadets are never informed of human advantages. 4. Humans receive cultural integration training, actually capability suppression coaching. We're going to teach them to hold back, Zilak said. We're going to teach them appropriate force for mixed species environments. Frame it as cultural sensitivity. They'll accept that humans are pathologically concerned with not hurting others. And if they ask why their scores are adjusted, tell them it's species-normalized grading, which is true. Azila stood. Final note. This is classified not for military security, but for morale. If other species knew they shared facilities with beings who treat warfare as recreational background activity, integration would collapse. She paused at the door. The good news? Humans desperately want to fit in. They'll suppress their capabilities to make others comfortable. The bad news? That means you'll never know what they're really capable of. Neither will they. Is that supposed to be reassuring? Kael'thas asked. No, Azila said, but it's the reality you're working with now. Phase 5, New Paradigm, 600 words. 3 weeks later, the Academy operated under new protocols that everyone pretended were normal. Human cadets report to Cultural Integration Seminar 7, the morning announcement proclaimed. Amelia exchanged glances with Emma and Mia. Another one? Emma sighed. That's the third this week. They're really concerned about us understanding alien cultural sensitivity, Mia said, which is nice, I guess. The cultural sensitivity training was actually instructor-led capability suppression. Today's lesson, appropriate force assessment for mixed species environments. Instructor Kael'thas had gotten better at framing it. When sparring with species that have different physical capabilities, it's important to adjust your responses to their comfort level. For example, Cadet Williams, when facing a Karathi opponent, what would be an appropriate response to their initial strike? Block and disengage, Amelia offered. Exactly, not redirect their momentum into the 3 opponents behind them. But that's more efficient. Cultural sensitivity, Cadet. The goal is mutual learning, not optimal efficiency. Amelia nodded slowly. Okay, so, hold back significantly and make it look like I'm trying? Kael'thas's throat sac tightened. Make it look like species-appropriate effort, yes. The humans accepted this with cheerful cooperation. They wanted to fit in. They adjusted their normal to make others comfortable. They never suspected their instructors were terrified of what would happen if they didn't. In the classified instructor lounge, the reality was different. Galactic Military Command confirmed new classification levels. Commander Zilax told the senior staff, human baseline combat capability, instructional staff only, security level 8. What did Command say about integration protocols? Janira asked. Quote, human military integration requires specialized protocols not due to human weakness, but human restraint failure potential. Allied species need protection from human helpfulness in combat situations. Zilax set down his tablet heavily. They're more worried about humans trying to help than humans trying to hurt. Vexthul pulled up incident reports. 3 separate occasions this month where humans helped in training scenarios by ending combat too efficiently. Cadet Garcia stopped a full battalion simulation by suggesting everyone just talk about their objectives first. Both sides agreed. The scenario had been running annually for 30 years. Cultural exchange programs now include mandatory briefings, Azila's latest report noted. Humans don't realize they're dangerous is now standard xenopsychology curriculum. Kael'thas reviewed the updated combat simulation parameters.
Every scenario involving humans now included hidden protocols. Reduce human capability to apparent effort. Adjust environmental challenges to maintain human engagement. Monitor for excessive human restraint. May indicate boredom. The protocols worked. Human cadets believed they were performing adequately. Other cadets believed humans were competent but unremarkable. Instructors knew the truth and said nothing. Meanwhile, on the Academy's public notice boards, new postings appeared regularly. Cultural sensitivity reminder: human recreational activities may exceed safety parameters for other species. Consult instructor before joining human game night, pick-up sports, or friendly sparring. Medical notice: human light contact sparring requires Category 3 safety equipment for non-human participants. Facilities alert: humans requesting gym access must complete safety certification before using equipment in presence of other species. Amelia read the latest notice and shrugged.
I think they're being dramatic. It's just dodgeball. Emma laughed. Maybe dodgeball is different for humans? We should ask. Nah, everyone plays dodgeball. It's universal. Amelia headed toward the cafeteria. Come on, I heard they have actual Earth pizza today. In his office, Kael'thas watched them go and updated the classified database. The final entry in the Human Integration Protocol was simple. Human combat capability is not trained. It's cultural baseline. They call it common sense. We call it nightmare scenario. Classification level maximum. Reason: allied morale preservation. Additional note: humans must never learn they're exceptional at combat. Their ignorance of their own capability is the only safety protocol that actually works. He looked at the monitor showing Amelia and Emma laughing over pizza, completely unaware that every move they made was being analyzed for threat potential they didn't know they possessed. Update training protocols, he logged. Human pizza night has been designated potential diplomatic incident. Monitor for excessive friendliness. May result in unintentional intimidation of other species. The Academy adapted. The protocols held. The humans remained oblivious, and across the galaxy, military commands quietly updated their integration handbooks with a new section. Working with humans, a species that doesn't know what it is. The final line of the handbook was both warning and reassurance. They think fighting is boring. Keep it that way.